Hi everybody, it's Matthew Seville with SLRlounge.com here, and we are doing a brief tutorial on using presets in Adobe Camera Raw and Adobe Bridge with the new SLR Lounge preset system version 5.1, which is compatible with Adobe's Creative Cloud and CS6 programs. Of course, remember that Photoshop, CS5, and older programs have a different process version, so these presets will not be compatible with those. However, the concept of presets and editing and color correcting in Camera Raw is the same, so you can follow along no matter which Camera Raw program you use. Alright, I'm going to click on, let's just get all of these. I'm just going to hold down Control and click on all of these portrait and wedding images here. I've got an assortment of different photos. I'm just going to double click on them to open them up in Camera Raw. And let's delete all the settings and get started. Now, the goal of this preset system, and any presets in general, is to speed up your overall workflow and kind of help you think through your processing so you can have a foundation to build on, you can develop your style. So let's say I like this, warm sepia, vintage faded look. Let's see how I would accomplish that. Let's go Camera Raw defaults. Let's go into the preset system here in the presets tab in the Camera Raw window. And let's start from scratch. I could click soft import right here, and that would give me a general overall, just a slight bit of pop to any image. And if you have skin tones or faces in the image, you usually want to start with these soft presets. I know that I want to go in a vintage, black and white, faded, warm direction. But honestly, this is my first take on this video, and I've already forgotten what settings I used. So I'm kind of going in here blank, and let's see, base, soft, stylized. I know I want to go in this direction. Let's try a bright fade black and white. That's a little bit too bright. Let's try neutral fade black and white. Let's try punchy fade black and white. And there we go. You can see how I just went down the line and quickly found the proper brightness for the overall image. And in the future, I'll probably just go straight to this punchy fade black and white for images that are this type of brightness in general. Then let's quickly move along and let's just go into our neutral curves. Warm curves, antique black and white curves. Here we go. Let's try a neutral punch or a vintage punch. One of these. Well, let's start with the neutral washes. If you can see how this washes it out just a tiny bit. We've got amber, bronze, azure. We can try the neutral punches, amber, bronze, or the vintage punches. I'm liking the amber right here, but I do feel like it could still use even more warming up. And that's where the next step comes in, the split toning, which we call color schemes. So right here, for example, I'm going to go either analogous or tone on tone. I want to try, let's try yellow green, yellow orange, orange yellow, orange red, or we could try tone on tone, yellow yellow, orange orange, red red. You know what? I think I saw the perfect one back here. It was this one or this one. Here we go. This is that look I'm going for. And that's it. Let's break it down. What did we do? Let's reset all. What we did was we accomplished this with 3 preset clicks. It was the base, soft, stylized. It was the punchy fade, black and white. Of course, you could try the filmic black and white. That might look nice. I'm going to go punchy fade, and then I'm going to go down to my antique black and whites. It was, I think it was an amber. We could try amber or bronze, black and white vintage punches. And then it was, what was it? The color scheme, we went with yellow orange. That right there is it. Now, as if that weren't fast enough, I definitely want to save this as its own preset so that I can get to this general look with just one click again in the future. So let's try that now. I'm going to click on the menu icon here in the upper right section, and I'm going to click Save Settings. I'm going to uncheck the white balance and exposure because usually those need to be corrected separately from an image to image basis. Let's unclick transform and lens profile corrections as well. But let's leave everything else selected, and I'm going to click save. It's going to bring up my interface here, and you can see where the presets are saved. I'm going to click on this very first preset because I want it to be at the very top so I can quickly access it. This is where I would put the My Mixology, as we call it, type presets. So I'm going to do 00-00, and then I'm just going to rename it as, what do I want to rename it as? I'm just going to call it Warm Faded Black and White, or Warm Faded Sepia. And there we go. I'm just going to click save and it should show up right here. There we go, warm faded sepia. So now I'll have this specific look at my fingertips right here at the top of the preset section for any future image that I want to process this way. For example, let's say I want to take this next image and process it like that. I'm just going to click this blindly. Actually, let's reset it first, camera raw default, since we're going to process it anyways. Let's do warm faded sepia. And there we go, right off the bat, it looks gorgeous right out of the box. Maybe all I would want to do is bump up the exposure a tiny bit, since this image was a little bit darker than the previous one. And there you go. However, of course, I want to do that beautiful color processing as well, so I'm going to undo all of that and go back here to this. So let's see, I've clearly got this black clipped here, but I'm going to hit U to hide that. I want to go for this warm but much more punchy color version of this image. Let's go to the presets, let's reset all again, and then let's start with our base soft, or let's go soft stylized right off the bat, and let's see. Punchy fade skin desat or punchy fade filmic color. I think we're definitely headed in the right direction here. Let's scroll down and move along the line through our workflow. The curves come next. Let's try the warm curves. Again, I want it to pop even more, so I'm going to go for the vintage or neutral punches. Let's try warm cross or vintage warm cross. These are looking great. Maybe crimson to warm it up, or apricot or something to warm it up a little bit. This is starting to look great. I think maybe I'll want to bump it up a little bit. Let's just keep scrolling down here. Try bumping it up just a tiny bit, because remember before I had my shadows just a little bit too clipped. Now they're only just this tiny little speck right here. So I think this brightness level is perfect. And moving on down the line, there's really nothing else that I want to do to this image. I could tweak the vignetting a little bit. It already does have a little bit of vignetting added because the foundation that I applied was one of the filmic ones. And remember, if you pick the right foundation, you really shouldn't have to do too much to any of these adjustments or even sometimes the special effects or curves. It should be pretty good right out of the box. My rule of thumb personally is I give myself 3 or 4 clicks that aren't, seriously correcting horrible errors. I give myself 3 or 4 clicks to stylize and get an image to my certain taste. And if I'm really doing any more than that on the vast majority of my images, I feel like I'm doing too much personally. So that's about it. I'm at 3 clicks right now, right? I don't think I want to do anything else to this image. If I really wanted to, I could mess around with the vignetting a little bit more. Or if I wanted to, I could do a little bit of retouching, because this image is all about the bokeh and the beautiful blur that's going on here, and it's focusing only on her eyelashes. You can see I've got a tiny bit of an enhancement here that I applied. What I definitely might want to do is I'll show you how to use the presets here for retouching. Let's go skin softener, and let's hit the left bracket key just to make this brush a tiny bit smaller. And with the feather and flow and density turned all the way up, let's just brush over this area once really quick. It doesn't really need it, but I want it to just smooth out a little bit overall because, like I said, I'm going for the bokeh, the blur here. And since we're going for that, I might even want to click New and double down and do a line diminisher and go over the whole area as well. Now this will really start smoothing things out too much. And if you have a very sharp, in focus, where their entire face is in focus, then this might not be a good idea. But since the image is about bokeh and that shallow depth of field, I feel like I can get away with this right here. And that's about it. I think we have effectively used presets to get this image looking really, really beautiful in just a short while. Of course, remember, again, I'm talking you guys through it, so if I were on my own doing it, I would probably go a little bit faster. But anyways, at least it didn't take 30 minutes to do this image. So, all right, let's jump to the next image here. I'm going to hit H to bring back my hand tool, and let's zero this bad boy out. Let's just reset all, see what we've got. Here's an example of an image that has a lot of potential, but it's got some pretty serious flare going on here. And I like flare, but I feel like I've lost my blacks and I need to make this image pop. So I'm gonna go straight to my light crush or even heavy crush right there. I can see the details just starting to come back in here. I'm just gonna roll down here all the way to -5, maybe -1. That looks great. And remember, these base presets don't always affect your exposure. So for example, if I'm going for a black and white look, I can come back here up to my light crush black and white, heavy crush black and white. Even though I already tweaked my exposure, you can see it's still down at -1 because these base presets, unless they say reset right there, they don't affect your exposure or white balance. So here we go. I'm really liking this, except her skin tone is a little bit dark. So what I want to do is I want to come down here to my adjustment sections, and I'm going to go into the saturation and do a black and white, but with a warm boost. What the warm boost does, let me just click right away and show you guys. This is what it looks like ordinarily, but then you can see how the warm tones in the image are just getting a little tiny bit brighter. And what that's doing is it's adjusting the HSL grayscale here to bump up the warm tones. And this is great for when you're trying to do skin tones in a black and white and you want to maintain even tones overall. This is where you go. This is what you want to do. Maybe I'll just do a little bit of fine tuning to my personal taste here like this, maybe brighten it up just a tiny bit. You don't want it to be too dramatic because then you will start to see little posterization edges on the skin tone. But anyways, this is looking great right here. Let's go back to the presets, and where were we? If anything, I might just come down here to my antique black and white curves and just do a little bit of a neutral punch. Let's try that. And oh, you can see that it affected the HSL back to 000 again. So I'm going to come back here. Let's just try playing around with this. Maybe just a little bit of a warming up or something. Actually, I'm going to go neutral punch and leave it black and white like this. I'm going to go back down here. Let's just scroll through the saturation here and let's go back to my warm boost. And then let's just do a tiny, tiny bit of a faint yellow-orange or a yellow-yellow, orange-orange, something like this. You know what? I think my original decision to do black and white straight up was the best decision. So I am just going to reset that. Really, I think I'm done. I might want to make it pop a little bit overall, so I'm going to go up here and just look for my contrast adjustments. Let's try heavy adjustment, maximum adjustment. That looks great right there. I'm not really clipping anything yet. I've got this, over here and this down here. Those aren't really important aspects of the image. The tones right here are what I'm worried about, and they look beautiful. So I'm going to wrap that up and move on. Here's a really quick image. Let's reset it. Let's just go camera raw defaults. Let's scroll up to the top here and let's just go punchy fade, filmic black and white, filmic color, skin desat. So here's my foundation. Let's go curves, cool curves, warm. Here we go. Let's try a neutral punch or a neutral wash. Warm cross, maybe crimson. There we go. That looks beautiful right out of the box right there. I could go for a little bit more punch, or I could go for a little bit less punch. And that's it. I feel like I'm done here. Let's move on. Let's check out this next image. Here's a wedding detail photo that I know I really want to make it vibrant. Let's zero this out and see camera raw defaults. It's actually kind of cold as far as the white balance is concerned, and it's definitely very flat. It was shot in the shade. There was very, very soft, gentle lighting, so I need to make this image pop. Even though it's a portrait or it's a detail photo of skin, I'm going to actually use the vivid presets here because I feel like they're right for the situation. Let's do vivid, maybe even a light crush. That looks great. And if anything, to kind of combat this crush and the fact that I'm using a vivid, I might hit K and do, let's see what I have here. I should have a retouching brush here. Line diminisher, or since this is actually out of focus up here, let's scroll down and do heavy D sharpener. And I'm just going to make my brush a little bit larger, and I'm just going to go across the top of the image here to kind of smooth out that area and make it look a little bit more out of focus. It looks like I could click new. I could stand to go even a little bit further. And let's do line diminisher. I'm just going to go over that area right there, go over that area right there. Seems like the line diminisher maybe darkened the skin tones a little bit, so I'm going to bump up my exposure for that area, and that looks great. So we can move on. I'm going to hit H to get out of the brushes there, and let's just go down the line. I think this image is great overall, aside from it being a little bit too cool. Now I could go and correct the white balance, but I actually do want it to be over the top kind of warm. So I'm just going to scroll down here to my color schemes, which affect the split toning. And I'm just going to go in the orange warm direction and see what we can come up with. There, this is looking beautiful. Let's see what else we can do. Red, violet. Oh, I think I liked it back here where I was. Red, green, this is gorgeous. It's got a little bit of a subtle fade to it, but at the same time, it's still vibrant and clear and crisp. Kind of similar to this image here that we were going for that same look. Anyways, folks, that's about it for today. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and take care.